Hey everybody, so today I think we should look at all of the mainline booster box sets from Scarlet and Violet era because a lot of cards are crashing. For example, a Drowsy, which was once almost an $80 card, is now back to around $35, $40-ish dollars. And there's lots of scenarios going on. So now that a lot of these cards have sort of stabilized and they've come down a lot, I think it's time to look back at the top 1, 3, 5, and 10 values of all these booster boxes. Look at the booster box price because there are some interesting things happening. And quite honestly, looking at the data, I would be quite happy if I'm Pokemon Company right now. I think they're in a pretty decent spot, and I think the trend that is happening right now is going to continue for a little bit longer. And what I mean by that is I think we're going to see a pullback in cards, and also I think a lot of booster box prices are going to stabilize, and maybe some of these newer set releases are more accessible to people and they're going to be able to open product. So the first set, SV base chase card, is $50.22, and I don't have it up, but it wasn't actually the Drowsy anymore, surprisingly. I believe it's the Gardevoir is the number one card. And outside that, you have a top 3 value, $120, top 5 value, $180, top 10, $280. Paldea Evolved, next big one up, $233. That's the Magikarp, which has fallen a fair amount. Top 3 value, $350, top 5, $433, top 10 value, $583. And if you look at Paldea Evolved, the back Scalper is a card I wanted to highlight because this was one that got pumped because I believe, who's the artist of this card? Should be here somewhere, right, on it? Can't remember the guy's name, Japanese, obviously, but he drew the Drowsy, so all of these other cards from Paldea Evolved got pumped, and they've come back down a lot as well. Next up, we have Obsidian Flames, the Charizard, $65 approximately. Top 3 value around $110, top 5 value $141, and top 10 value $192. And when we look at Obsidian Flames, the booster box continues to go around $110. The Houndour was a card I wanted to highlight. This was over $30 a month ago, and it's now down under $10. And if you go look at basically any set in the SV era right now, almost all of the IR cards, or at least a lot of them, I shouldn't say almost all, but a lot of the IR cards that aren't very popular, like they aren't the top IRs, a lot of them are seeing very large pullbacks. And even some of the more popular IRs are still seeing decent pullbacks as well, which we'll get into later in this video. Paradox Rift, the Groudon, about $102, the top 3 value $227, $228, top 5 around $300, top 10 $437 approximately. The booster box is sitting around $193, $194 right now. The Garchomp's taking a hit as well. This was over $50 at one point, now below $40. So again, not a huge drop. Garchomp's probably one of the more popular Pokemon. It's not an IR, it's an SIR as well in this set, but it has seen about a 20% reduction in price. Temporal Forces next up. The top hit, the Raging Bolt, $106. Top 3 value $237, top 5 value $350, top 10 value $521. That is, in fact, the median value of top 10 for all of the mainline booster box sets in the SV era so far. And when we go look at Temporal Forces, the Ghastly is a card I wanted to highlight. This was over $60 at one point, now selling around $45, so we've seen about a 25% pullback in the Ghastly. Fun fact, I actually pulled the Ghastly and Morty's Conviction from a booster box about a month ago. If I remember when editing, I'll try and throw a photo in. I'll take a photo of them. But yeah, very, very interesting set. I do like opening it. I think there are a lot of fun cards in it. And I think Temporal Force is underrated. Again, that's just my opinion. That doesn't have any relevance on card prices. Next up, Twilight Masquerade, the Greninja, $374. This was over $400. It's pulled back a bit. Top 3 value, $565, which you'll see something surprising when we look at Twilight Masquerade. Top 5, $675, and then top 10, $807 almost. Now, the surprising thing about Twilight Masquerade is that the Eevee is actually not in the top 3 cards anymore. This, at one point, was the second most expensive card in the set behind the Greninja. The Pairing and the Carmine are now both higher than it. And this card went from around $100 to around $70, $75 at this point. So we've seen like a 25-30% pullback in this Eevee, which, you know, maybe with more supply hitting the market, but also people just selling off some of their IR cards, it makes sense it's seen a pullback. This large of a pullback this quickly is a little bit surprising to me. Either way, next up is Stellar Crown. The top hit is $61.53, which isn't the Terapagos anymore, guys, which we'll look at in a second. It actually is the Squirtle. Top 3 value $175, top 5 value $242, top 10 value $347.50. And when we look at Stellar Crown, the Terapagos is actually the second most expensive card now behind the Squirtle. This was around $85, $90 back in January. It's now selling around $70, even below $70, I think, closer to $60. And you have sales most recent from today, $53.72, so pretty close to $50. A lot of these cards are tanking fast. So 90 to 50, that's almost like a 50% pullback on the Terrapagos there. Surging Sparks, the Pikachu, $415. That is a fairly large pullback as well, considering it was around $470 a couple months ago. Top 3 value, $763. Top 5 value, $938. And top 10 value, $1,156. The only set now in SV era, booster box wise, over $1,000 top 10 value. And when we look at Surging Sparks, there was one card I wanted to highlight, was the Pikachu. So again, it was around $500 at the end of January. And that's probably when we were at like peak popularity in the hobby right after Prismatic came out. We're now down to around 400, 415. Most recent sales in this card, a lot of them under $400, excuse me. So 380, 385. You do have a couple up here. 432, 432, but then 350, 432, 397, 398, 390. So sitting around $400 average, probably, maybe even a tiny bit higher. And then finally, Journey Together, which the booster boxes are coming down a little bit. That's a good sign, around $245 on TCG Player, but most recent sales, a lot of them under $230. And I've seen lots of people say that they can get them at their LGSs for even lower than $230. Some people, unfortunately, don't have a good LGS that sells them at $230 or higher right now. When we look at the cards, the top chase card, the Clefairy, $272. I think yesterday when we showed this, it was like $290-ish, close to $300. So this is continuing to drop. Top 3 value, $544. Top 5 value, $736. And top 10 value, $907. I think these prices are going to continue to fall when we look at Journey Together. Enzor already $150, Salamence $120, Bellybolt, Iona's Bellybolt already under $100. Same thing with Hopzation. This was about $120 yesterday. Surprisingly, the Articuno is holding around $40, and I think that's fair. Like, Articuno's a fairly popular Pokemon. It's a nice artwork. I like the colors. So I don't think that's going to be a card that, tanks down to $20. It could, in theory, like it's definitely possible. But I think that's probably going to be one of the IRs that holds a bit more value. The Volcanion EX, which is an SIR, is already under $40. This was like $51 yesterday. Couple gold cards in there. The unstamped Ens Reshiram is around $26. The Whale Lord's down to $25. I would keep an eye on both of these. Like, if both of these cards get low enough, I think people are going to start making an investment play into them. Outside that, maybe the Furret's up a little bit. I think this was under $10 yesterday. The Noibat, same sort of thing. It was maybe slightly under $10. Again, we're less than 48 hours after release. So these prices for Journey Together are going to change a lot. Same thing with the booster box price eventually. So I thought about including it or, not even talking about it today, but I threw it in there just because now I have 9 to look at, which gives it a nice, easy way to find a median on a lot of these booster boxes and their sets. And that's why I said early in the video, I think Pokemon really likes this situation. I mean, if this was my company, I definitely would. When you look at the booster box price, the average booster box price is $212.70, but the median is $209. So the median's much closer to the average. Whereas when you look at the top 10 value for average and median, the average is $582. The median is $521. So there's a bit more of a discrepancy there. We do have some larger sets up top like Surging Sparks and Journey Together, which I think will drop. But it's going to be Surging Sparks, your Twilight Masquerade, and then even Paldea Evolved is like slightly above the average. But you do have some lower sets that are weaker, like your Obsidian Flames, your SV Base, even your Stellar Crown now, like the Terrapagos dropping a lot, not having a ton of depth there. But, the booster boxes are still holding strong, right? Like Stellar Crown, not a super deep set, $209 for a booster box. Obsidian Flames, the lowest in terms of value, $209 as well, almost $210. SV Base sitting around $183, being the lowest box right now. And then even Paradox and Temporal, I've talked about this multiple times, still sitting close to $200. So for Pokemon, it's great. All their boxes are selling at a very high level. I mean, once it's on the secondary market, I guess there's other things for them to consider. But I do think we are starting to see a lot of sets and cards stabilize and come back down to maybe not normality, but a more reasonable level. You're even seeing it with specialty sets as well. For example, the Charizard EX, which was selling for over $300 at one point, early March is now selling around $250, and I'm sure there's probably lower sales around $240. Outside of that, you have the Mew. Again, this was selling over $400, now selling around $350, and there's lower sales at $325, $335. And even the Umbreon EX from Prismatic Evolutions selling around $1,500 now instead of like that $1,600 range. You even have some sales $1,350, $1,400. So again, it is varying a lot. but it has pulled back slightly. And when we look at prismatic evolutions, we look at some of the cards. The ETBs also are kind of stagnating as well around 135, 140, which was surprising to me. But when we look, not sealed products, let's go to cards here, guys. When we look at a lot of these cards, we are seeing some changes, not a ton, but maybe a few of the cards are pulling back. For example, the Flareon's under 400 now. The Vaporeon was close to $400, maybe even over 400 at one point. It's now pulled back to around 375. Outside that, maybe the Ceruledge is pulled back a little bit in that 230-ish range. The Master Balls continue to fall. The Umbreon's now under $200. But outside that, a lot of these cards are still holding their value. And we're really going to have to see over the next couple months, as we have a down period between now and Destined Rivals coming out, what sort of happens with the overall market. It will be interesting to follow some of these trends, some of the IRs, the SIRs, even just the booster box prices across eras as well. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. Stay safe wherever you are in the world. Hopefully you're having a great weekend, and I'll catch you in the next one.